What's the best TV that you can buy in every category? And what's the best overall TV? I got a top 5 list for you in different categories and my best overall TVs. Now let's get into the rankings. Let's start off with gaming. At number 5 here, I have the Sony Bravia 9. I have the Sony Bravia 9 at number 5 because it is an LCD TV, but because it also doesn't have 144 hertz support. I do like this TV a lot for HDR gaming, and I think it does present a really good game mode picture quality for an LCD TV, but it is going to be lacking some of the gaming features that you want to be looking for in your gaming TV. So if you're looking for a gaming TV, I tend to think that OLED is better for gaming overall. It just has way more advantages in terms of gaming over an LCD TV. But if you're going to be buying the Bravia 9, you certainly can game on it. It's a really good gaming TV overall, and I do like it a lot. So the Bravia 9 is at number 5. At number 4, I have the Samsung QN900D. The reason why I have the Samsung QN900D above the Bravia 9 for gaming is because you can do 4K 240 Hz gaming on this TV. This is a really cool thing if you are a PC gamer, and I have to say the overall game mode picture quality on the QN900D is really good as well. I thought that it rivaled the Bravia 9, and when I put them side by side, I thought they were fairly similar in game mode, but I do give the edge because it supports more resolutions and it supports more refresh rates. So that is why the Bravia 9 is below the QN900D. The QN900D also has 8K gaming support, so you can use the PS5 Pro for this TV. At number 3, I have the Sony A95L. This is a QD OLED from last year, and I have to say that this is still a really great QD OLED overall. The reason why I have it at the number 3 spot is because it does lack support for 144 Hz. And that's going to be a deal breaker for some that are looking to have the PC gaming support up to 144 Hz. So I do have to mention that. It does have a really good game mode overall. The picture quality is really great, but it does lack some of the features that the other game modes will have. At number 2, I have the LG G4. I really love this TV. I think it is one of the best TVs of the year, no doubt about it. It does come with a 5-year warranty, so I do think that is something that is valuable if you are going to be buying a TV. Sometimes you might want to get a warranty with it, and this has it included in the price tag. That's really nice. And at bigger sizes, it comes with a wall mount. That's also a nice feature. But if you're looking at 55-inch and 65-inch, it does come with the stand in the box. So that is to be noted. This TV is incredible, though. This is going to be one of the best gaming TVs because it is going to also support 144 Hz, but also it has some of the best HDR brightness that I have seen in game mode to date. But there is one caveat. It's not a QD OLED. So while LG doesn't have the issue with the HDR brightness and the HDR color being impacted when you go into game mode on the G4, but it is still going to be impacted because it is a W OLED and it's not going to have that same color brightness as a QD OLED. So that is why my number 1 spot is the Samsung S95D. TV definitely ticks all the boxes in terms of what you're looking for in a gaming TV. I almost didn't have this at the number 1 spot, but the reason why it is in the number 1 spot is because it is just such a capable TV. It has everything going for it. HDR color, HDR brightness. I think that it is bar none the best gaming TV that you have out there today. An honorable mention for this list is the Samsung S90D, and the reason why I have it as an honorable mention and not something that actually makes the list is because it's only a QD OLED some of the time. In 42, 48, and 83-inch sizes, it's always a W OLED, and in certain countries, it doesn't matter what size you get, you're always going to get a W OLED. So QD OLED is not guaranteed unless you are in the US and you're buying in the 55, 65, and 77-inch size. And even in the cases where it is a QD OLED, it's still somewhat limited as a QD OLED because of the limitations that Samsung has put on it. So it's not going to be anywhere near the S95D, and I do think that the G4 is going to have better HDR brightness overall, just not better HDR color. But when it's all said and done, I do think the G4 is a better TV than the S90D. The A95L is a better TV than the S90D. Couple all that with the fact that it is going to be a W OLED some of the time. That is why it's not on the list. Next on the list is TV streaming picture quality. So this is going to be if you're going to be streaming movies, TV shows, or even sports. this is going to be the category for you. Now, let's start off with number 5. This is going to be the Bravia 7. Now, I'm going to be balancing picture quality with the streaming quality, with the actual TV type and the technology that it uses. So, this is going to be kind of a tough ranking, but the Bravia 7 sits at 5 because it is going to give you really great picture quality for the price, but it's also some of the best streaming picture quality that you can get, and it's going to give you good brightness overall. The only big knock on it is going to be the viewing angles. Not that great overall. So if you're going to be watching from an angle, you might want to get something different instead of the Bravia 7, which the number 4 spot is going to be a good viewing angle TV, the S95D from Samsung. I like this TV a lot. It's good for streaming. It doesn't have the best streaming picture quality though, because it's not on the same level as LG's top processing, and it's not on the Sony level when you're talking about the streaming picture quality. So I do think the S95D gives you a really clean picture overall, but it's not going to be the cleanest streaming experience that you'll have. There is still some issues when it comes down to streaming with the picture quality, but again, not bad, and the TV is great overall because it is a QD OLED and it's one of the top performing QD OLEDs. I have to say, I have to put it at the number 4 spot. At the number 3 spot, I have the Sony Bravia 9. This is an incredible TV, one of the best TVs that you can buy, if not the best, in the LCD TV category. So if for some reason you don't want an OLED TV, in my opinion, the Bravia 9 is the best LCD TV you can buy. And when I was reviewing this TV, when I used it for streaming movies and TV shows, it was a really fantastic experience, as goes with all the Sony TVs that I use. It's going to give you the most options when it comes down to cleaning up the picture. There's so many different settings there in terms of cleaning up the picture. So I do like that a lot. And I think that when it comes down to the overall TV quality, it's good TV overall. The only reason why it's over the S95D in this category is because of the streaming picture quality. It does have better streaming picture quality than the S95D, but ultimately the S95D is the better TV in my opinion because of the technology. But we're going with streaming picture quality here, and that is why I have the S95D at 4 and the Bravia 9 at 3. At number 2, I have the LG G4. I really like this TV overall. I think it's a fantastic TV, and it's only second to the A95L in streaming picture quality because it doesn't have as many options to clean the picture quality like the Sony TVs offer you. So that's why it is going to be at the number 2 spot. But I do think that this A11 processor that is in the G4 is going to be an upgrade over what they had in the past, because it certainly looks that way when you have them all set up in the same room for streaming. I noticed that the G4 looked cleaner than the C4 did, even though I was running the same type of feed through it. It just seemed like the G4 was doing a better job at processing the picture, so that's why I'm going to say the streaming picture quality on the G4 is an upgrade over its previous methods that it used. Now, the number 1 spot is going to be the Sony A95L. That's because I do think that Sony still is going to be the king when it comes down to the streaming picture quality. They're just going to be offering you more stuff that it does by itself, and also things that you can do to the picture on top of all of that. So the settings that I mentioned, you are going to have that at your disposal with the A95L. And the S95D I had at 4, that's a QD OLED. Well, this one at number 1 is also a QD OLED, and it does offer the same type of streaming quality as the other TVs that I mentioned from Sony, but this one is definitely the best that Sony has to offer. It is a pricey TV, and it is at a higher premium, but I'm not ranking it based off of value and what it's going to be worth to you. This is just based on what my eyes see, and what my eyes see is that this is the best TV in terms of streaming, and if I was needing a TV for just streaming, I'm probably buying the A95L over all the other TVs. Next one is going to be movies. So we're taking the streaming aspect out of it. Yes, you can watch movies when you're streaming, and you can certainly put that in this category if you want to. This is going to be more focused on what I'm getting the picture to look like when I'm getting a nice feed. So think of a 4K Blu-ray, for example. That's kind of what I'm thinking of when I'm thinking of the movie category. Also, keep in mind that most movies that I'm going to be watching probably aren't going to be graded very high. So I'm not needing a lot of brightness, a lot of HDR impact, a lot of HDR color out of the TV. more than a certain threshold. If it crosses that threshold, then it's going to be enough for me. So things that I wouldn't put on a list for gaming may make the list on this one, such as like the LG C4, for example. This is going to be one of the situations where I do have the LG C4 on this list. So let's start off at number 5, the Sony Bravia 9. The Sony Bravia 9 is the only LCD TV on this list. It does offer a lot of brightness, a lot of HDR impact, and you do get that when you watch a movie that's going to give you those type of things. It is hard to beat. But I do say that unless you value artificial brightness, you're not going to find that in most movies. So unless you're somebody who watches the TV all the time in vivid mode, then the Bravia 9 is probably not going to be the movie watching TV for you. But I do think that the other TVs that are out there, the more premium OLED TVs, I can put those over this TV because of the contrast difference that I see ultimately. And that's why I have it at the 5 spot, not the 4 spot, not the 3 spot, not the 2 spot, not the 1 spot, because it is an LCD TV. That contrast difference that an OLED gives you is going to be why it is at my number 5 spot. I think the TV is incredible overall, and like I said, it is the best TV in the LCD TV category. It offers so much, but yet it's not going to give you that same type of picture quality as an OLED TV. I have seen them side by side, and I wasn't too impressed with the Bravia 9 when it comes down to watching movies and critical viewing situations. At the number 4 spot, I have the LG C4. This TV is going to be really good for movie watching. And when I put it up against the S90D, the Bravia 8, there were so many situations where I like the HDR presentation of the C4 better than the S90D and the Bravia 8. Couple that in with the controls that you have over the HDR tone mapping, then the C4 is going to give you a really good movie watching experience. I do think that it loses in HDR color next to a QD OLED S90D, but like I mentioned earlier, the S90D is sometimes going to be found in a W OLED, so those things have to be kept in mind. I still think that the S90D and a QD OLED is a better TV overall. Because of the advantages that you're seeing with the HDR color, you're really going to be getting a better presentation from the S90D with color in mind. However, in a lot of movies that you watch, you're not going to see that advantage too much, and I saw that the C4 was just going to look better than the S90D in HDR for a lot of scenes. So I do think overall the C4 just gave me a better movie watching experience than the S90D, so that is why I have it at 4. Next up at number 3, I have the Sony A95L. The A95L is an incredible movie watching TV, and it's really good, especially if we're talking about streaming. But if we're just talking about pure feed picture quality, I do think that it falls to number 3 compared to the other 2 top TVs. And I do think that the A95L is great overall. And if this was the case where Sony came out with the new QD OLED and we're talking about using the 3rd generation technology and actually fully utilizing it, then we could be talking about them being number 1 here. Overall, the A95L is still an incredible TV, and the value that I'm not going to be talking about here isn't very good, but that's not why it's at the 3 spot. This is purely based on picture quality. I do think that the top 2 TVs are better overall in the picture quality because they are more capable when you compare it to the A95L. So I like the A95L a lot, but it is at my 3 spot. At the number 2 spot, I have the Samsung S95D. This TV is incredible for movie watching, and I think that overall, it's probably one of the best TVs that you can buy for movie watching. When it comes down to the S95D, if you're talking about HDR color, HDR brightness, this TV certainly does deliver it. And trust me, when you put it up against the top TV in this category, you really are splitting hairs, but I'm talking about just a difference of little things, just little things that is going to be the difference maker for me. And having it be a QD OLED is an advantage, but like I said, most of the time in the movies that I'm watching, I don't really see the QD OLED advantage to the point where I would really have to buy a QD OLED over a W OLED for critical movie watching situations. I haven't really gotten to that point like I have with gaming, where with gaming, I certainly will prefer a QD OLED over a W OLED, but when it comes down to movie watching, there's not too many reasons that I've gotten to get a QD OLED over a W OLED, as long as I'm not getting horrible uniformity. And that's one argument that you could make for the QD OLED S95D here, is that the uniformity is usually better than the top TV that I'm about to talk about, but uniformity definitely is going to be a panel lottery situation. Let's talk about the number 1 spot here, and that is going to be the LG G4. This TV is absolutely incredible for movie watching, and I think that the depth that you're getting out of the picture is hands down the best that I have seen in 2024. I put it next to all the top TVs, and I'm telling you, man, like the G4 just kind of stuck out as being something different. It just gave me a different feeling when I was watching the TV. Yes, it is a bit artificial and it does somewhat look artificial in some ways, but not artificial in a bad way. And it's kind of hard to explain, but the TV does have a certain depth to it that the other TVs just do not offer. And that is why it's in my number one spot. What LG ended up doing with tone mapping in this TV is just absolutely incredible, and it's the reason why I have it at the number one spot. Not only do you have really good control over the tone mapping by itself, like I mentioned with the C4, but on top of that, the G4 just offers you better HDR in general in terms of the tone mapping algorithm. It just seems to be more on point, and I actually do think that the picture depth that you're getting here is a result of what they're doing with some of the HDR tone mapping algorithms. It seems to be doing something behind the scenes, a little bit of manipulation of the actual picture. And this might draw purists away from the TV, but I actually think that it's doing a lot more good than it is doing harm. And I haven't seen too many situations where I thought that what it was doing was a bad result. So the G4 for me, it is the top spot in movie watching. And like I mentioned, it not being a QD OLED is not a deal breaker for me for movies because there's not too many movies that take advantage of what QD OLED is bringing to the table. The S95D compared to the G4, most of the time, I like the G4 better than the S95D for movies, and there's a reason for that. It's just what LG is doing behind the scenes with the picture looks better to me than the S95D. Okay, so now for my actual top 5 based on the best overall TV that you can buy with everything kept in mind. Gaming, movie watching, streaming, all of it. I even kind of considered audio in this category, but it's a small portion. And that's where the number 5 spot sits, where you do have really great TV audio in the Sony Bravia 9. And the reason why it's at number 5 is because it does offer you so much. It's like a total package. The only thing it doesn't offer is the same contrast levels as an OLED TV. But guess what, guys? It gets pretty dang close. And if you're looking for a TV, but you're not quite wanting an OLED and you're ready to pay the premium, the Bravia 9 is a great TV overall. There's not much that this TV can't do. It's a good option for movie watching, TV watching, streaming, sports, gaming, you name it, it's good. And it's going to be a solid option for those that don't want an OLED TV. At the number 4 spot, I have the Samsung S90D, and I want to say that some of the time this is going to be a W OLED like I mentioned before. So why does it make my top overall list? Is because when it is a QD OLED, it's probably the best option in that price bracket when you talk about the S90D, the C4, and the Bravia 8. I do think that the C4 and the Bravia 8 is a little bit better in terms of streaming performance, and in terms of the movie watching experience, I do think that the C4 is just a little bit better. But thinking about the QD OLED side of things, if you think about uniformity, that's going to matter in a lot of situations. Even in sports, you're going to notice the uniformity problems when you're talking about this price bracket. So the S90D is the king of this price bracket, in my opinion, and that is why it's at the number 4 spot. I think it's just a great TV overall, and you can't go wrong if you get the QD OLED variant of this TV. If you're looking at the other size options and you're looking for W OLED, I typically would say go with the C4 unless you highly value Game Motion Plus, and that is where I would say get the W OLED S90D instead. But if you don't, then get the C4 most of the time or the Bravia 8. At the number 3 spot, I have the Sony A95L. I think this is an incredible TV, and last year it won TV of the year, and rightfully so. It's just that the TVs that came out this year are better than it. There's no way around it for me. I think that the G4 is incredible picture quality, and the S95D gives you the best HDR brightness and color impact that I have seen from a TV to date. So yeah, the A95L doesn't give me the same type of HDR color impact and the same HDR impact as the S95D and the G4. So I have to say that when it comes down to it, the A95L is the lesser of these two. It's still a really great TV, and I do consider value in this category somewhat, but it's not going to be the reason why it's in 3. It's 3 because it's just not as good as the G4 and the S95D, in my opinion. So that's why it's at the number 3 spot. I like it a lot, but it's not quite those TVs. At the number 2 spot, this is going to be the LG G4. And that might shock you guys. That might shock you that it's at the number 2 spot based on what I said about the movie watching experience. And I almost put it at the number 1 spot. But the reason why it's sitting here at the number 2 spot is because at the end of the day, when I have it next to the QD OLED in gaming, it's just not going to be the same type of experience for me. And then when I go into those rare movies where HDR color does matter, well, the S95D is going to just look like the better TV overall. And so that is why I have it at the number 2 spot. I love the picture quality. I love what it does with the picture processing and the shenanigans that it does manipulating the picture. I think that it's incredible. It has great depth overall, but I had to think about it and think, hey, what is the best TV overall for everyone? Not just for me. This isn't just me in mind. If it's just me in mind, maybe I buy the G4 over the S95D. But I don't think you should buy the G4 over the S95D because ultimately, I think the S95D is going to offer you a better capable TV overall. Better picture quality because it's QD OLED, better uniformity because it's QD OLED, and that is why, number 1, I have the S95D. The uniformity alone is a reason why I can put it over the G4. I've heard so many people have issues with uniformity in the G4, and I'm willing to overlook that for myself personally, but I'm not willing to overlook that for other people. And when I'm recommending a TV, I think of things that are going to have practical impact on people. And I think that this coating is actually a really good thing for Samsung overall. Now, I know I'm going to be in the quiet majority of those people thinking that because there's a loud vocal minority that hates the screen coating, and I'm probably going to get a ton of comments about that. But I guarantee you, this thing sold really well because of the screen coating. And I do think this is a bigger solution for most average people than the LG G4 and the glossy screen that's going to end up causing reflection problems in the situations where the S95D just simply wouldn't. And if you want one more reason, and this is kind of going to go in the gaming category, Game Motion Plus. I think that Game Motion Plus is a game changer for gamers. It is just going to be a really awesome solution for motion in gaming when you're talking about making a 30 frames per second game feel like it's 60 frames per second. This is a must-have feature for gamers. There's going to be games that you play that have 30 frames per second as the frame rate, and there's no way around it. There's nothing you can do about it. So when you have that, Game Motion Plus is a lifesaver, and that's why I love it. I think that this is something that more TVs need to have, and that's why I'm calling it out in the best overall TV section, because listen up, TV manufacturers, you really need this in your TV if you want to attract more gamers. But I would love to hear your opinion. What is the best TV that you can buy right now? Tell me each category or just tell me the best overall in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your answer. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you in the next one.